change his occupation, his location, even his associates. Yet if this inner line remains unchanged, his results will return to it. He may rise temporarily above it, but something within him will begin to correct the difference. He will make decisions small, unnoticed decisions that bring him back to what feels familiar. This is not chance, it is habit of thought. I have observed men who appeared for a time to break beyond their accustomed earnings. They received larger sums, entered better positions, and seemed to advance. Yet within a short period, they found themselves back where they had been. They explained this by circumstance. They blamed conditions. But the cause was not external. The cause was acceptance. They had not yet accepted themselves at the higher level. You must understand that the mind seeks harmony with what it believes to be true. When results exceed belief, discomfort appears. The man feels uncertain. He questions whether he belongs at that level. And in that uncertainty, he begins to act in ways that restore his former condition. He may hesitate when opportunity presents itself. He may avoid decisions that would sustain his advancement. He may even reject greater responsibility, believing himself unprepared. And through these actions, he returns to the level he has accepted. This is why effort alone does not produce lasting change. A man may work harder than ever before, yet if his inner boundary remains unchanged, his results will not move beyond it. He will expend energy, but the outcome will remain familiar. The majority misunderstand this completely. They believe that more labor must produce more reward. And while labor is necessary, it is not sufficient. It must be guided by belief. It must be aligned with expectation. Otherwise, it becomes motion without advancement. Consider the early life of Andrew Carnegie. He began with little. His position did not suggest greatness. Yet from the beginning, he refused to accept a small condition as permanent. He did not measure himself by his surroundings. He measured himself by what he intended to become. This refusal to accept limitation shaped his thinking. It directed his actions. It influenced his decisions. And in time, it altered his results. He did not wait for evidence before he believed in greater possibility. He believed first, and his actions followed. This is the order that must be understood. Belief establishes the boundary. Action operates within it. Result reflects it. If you desire to change the result, you must examine the boundary. You must ask yourself, not what you earn, but what you believe you can earn. Not what is available, but what you consider natural for yourself. For it is this sense of what is natural that governs your conduct. The drifting man never questions this. He accepts his level as fact. He tells himself that this is simply how things are. He compares himself to others in similar condition and finds comfort in sameness. And in doing so, he strengthens the very boundary that confines him. Others begin to see this acceptance. They observe that he does not reach beyond his position, that he does not seek greater reward with conviction, that he operates within a narrow range, even when opportunity suggests expansion. And in this observation, they conclude that he is suited only for that range. This conclusion limits him further, for people respond to what a man projects. If he presents himself as one who belongs within a certain boundary, he will be treated accordingly. If he expects little, he will receive little, not by injustice, but by alignment. The man who breaks this pattern does something different. He questions his accepted level. He examines his thinking. He recognizes that what he has accepted is not necessarily what is possible. And in this recognition, he begins to shift his boundary. This shift does not occur at once. It requires repetition. A man must return to the idea of greater possibility again and again, until it begins to feel familiar. He must replace the thought of limitation with the thought of expansion. He must imagine himself operating at a higher level until it no longer feels foreign. This process builds a new acceptance, and once this acceptance is formed, action changes. The man begins to speak differently. He begins to act with greater confidence. He no longer hesitates at opportunities that once intimidated him. He moves toward them because they now align with what he believes to be natural. Others see this change immediately. They notice that he no longer appears confined, that his thinking has broadened, that his presence carries greater certainty. And in response, they begin to offer him opportunities that match this new condition. This is not coincidence, it is recognition. For people respond to the signal a man carries, and that signal is determined by what he has accepted within himself. You must therefore take control of this acceptance. Do not allow it to be shaped by circumstance, by past experience, or by the opinions of others. Shape it deliberately. Decide what level you will accept, and then train your mind to align with that decision. This is done through repetition. Each day, you must remind yourself of your aim. You must fix in your mind the level at which you intend to operate. You must reject thoughts that contradict it. And over time, the new boundary will take hold. Once it does, your actions will follow. You will no longer need to force change. It will occur naturally because your thinking has changed. Your decisions will reflect your new standard. Your responses will align with it, and your results will rise accordingly. This is the law. Income is not merely earned. It is allowed, and what you allow is determined by what you accept. If you accept limitation, you will live within it. If you reject it and replace it with a higher standard, you will move beyond it. The choice is not made in your work, it is made in your thinking. And once that choice is made firmly and reinforced daily, the number you once believed fixed will begin to change, not by chance, but by design. For when the boundary within the mind is raised, the results that follow have no choice but to rise with it. You must now look beyond the boundary itself and examine the manner in which a man quietly agrees to remain within it. For the limit is not held in place by force, but by consent given daily, often without awareness. And this consent appears most clearly in the way a man measures his own value. A man is not paid merely for the work he performs. He is paid for the value he believes he delivers. This distinction is of the highest importance, yet it is rarely understood. The drifting man does not consciously set his price. He accepts what is offered. He negotiates timidly. He hesitates when the moment comes to claim more. And in doing so, he reveals his own estimation of himself. This estimation becomes his standard. You may observe this in the simplest interactions. A man is offered an opportunity to increase his earnings. He knows he is capable. He knows he can deliver greater service. Yet when asked to state his price, he lowers it. Not because it is required, but because something within him resists asking for more. That resistance is not external. It is internal agreement with a lower value. The man tells himself he is being reasonable. He believes he is avoiding risk. Yet in truth, he is affirming his own limitation. And each time he does this, he strengthens the belief that he is worth no more than he has been receiving. This is how income becomes fixed, not by decree, but by repeated acceptance. I recall a salesman whose earnings had remained unchanged for years. He worked diligently. He knew his trade, yet his income did not grow. When examined, the cause was not lack of opportunity, but lack of self-valuation. He approached each sale with caution. He asked for less than he could command. He expected resistance, and therefore created it. When his thinking was changed, when he began to see his service as valuable, his conduct changed at once. He spoke differently. He stood differently. He asked without hesitation, and his income rose. Not because the world had changed, but because he had. You must understand that value is not determined solely by what you do. It is determined by how you present what you do. A man may possess great ability, yet if he presents it with uncertainty, it will be received as uncertain. Another, with equal or lesser ability, may present it with conviction, and it will be accepted as valuable. Others respond not only to the service, but to the confidence behind it. This is why self-valuation must come first. The drifting man waits for others to recognize his worth. He believes that if he works long enough, someone will reward him accordingly. But this belief is flawed. Recognition follows declaration, not the other way around. You must first declare your value to yourself and then to others. This declaration is not made through words alone, it is made through action. Through the manner in which you conduct your affairs, through the level at which you are willing to negotiate, through the refusal to accept less than what you know to be fair. This requires courage. For the moment you raise your standard, resistance may appear. Others may question. They may test your certainty. And if your belief is not firm, you will retreat. You will lower your request. You will return to what is familiar. But if your belief holds, something different occurs. Others begin to accept your standard. They see that you are not uncertain, that you do not waver, that you expect to be compensated according to the value you render. And in this expectation, they adjust. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. The man who renders great service and claims fair return stands in harmony with the law of exchange. He does not demand without giving, nor does he give without receiving. He balances both. The drifting man breaks this balance. He either gives less than he could, or he accepts less than he should. And in both cases he remains confined. You must correct this. Begin by examining how you value your own service. Do you speak of it with certainty? Do you present it with conviction? Or do you diminish it, soften it, qualify it in an effort to avoid rejection? Each of these tendencies reveals agreement with a lower level, and each must be replaced. You must train yourself to see your contribution clearly, to recognize the benefit you provide, to understand the effect of your work, and then to claim compensation in proportion to that effect. This is not done once. It must be repeated. Each time you accept fair return, you strengthen your belief. Each time you refuse less, you raise your standard. And over time, this repetition builds a new level of acceptance. Others will see this change. They will notice that you no longer hesitate when value is discussed, that you do not retreat under pressure, that you hold your position with calm certainty. And this perception alters how they respond to you. You become respected, you become trusted, you become recognized as one who knows his worth. This recognition opens the way for increased income, not through demand, but through alignment. For people are willing to pay for value when that value is presented with conviction. They are willing to reward those who stand firmly in their contribution. And they avoid those who appear uncertain, for uncertainty suggests risk. The drifting man carries that risk. He lowers his own standard before it is challenged. He expects rejection and therefore receives it. He anticipates limitation and therefore confirms it. You must break this pattern. Do not wait for others to define your value. Define it yourself based upon the service you render. Strengthen that definition through repeated thought and express it through consistent action. For the moment you change your valuation, your behavior changes. And when behavior changes, results follow. This is the law. Income is not fixed by what you do alone. It is shaped by what you believe you are worth. And until that belief is raised, your results will remain within the range it permits. But once it is raised firmly, consistently, without retreat, the number that once held, you will begin to move, not by force, but by acceptance. You must now look still deeper, for even when a man begins to value himself more highly, there remains a force that quietly pulls him backward, often without his consent, and always without his awareness. I speak of fear, not the loud, obvious fear that announces itself openly, but the silent form that disguises itself as caution, reason, and prudence. This fear is the guardian of your present income. It does not seek to destroy your progress, it seeks to contain it. Whenever you begin to rise beyond your accustomed level, it appears. Not as panic, but as a quiet suggestion. It whispers, "Be careful. Do not go too far. What if you lose what you have?" And in listening to these suggestions, a man begins to retreat. You must understand that this retreat is rarely deliberate. It occurs through small decisions, a missed opportunity, a reduced price, a safer choice. Each one appears insignificant, yet together they form a pattern that returns the man to the level he believes is safe. This is how fear operates. It does not strike all at once. It works gradually through repetition. Each time you obey it, you strengthen it. Each time you hesitate because of it, you confirm its authority. And in time, it becomes the silent ruler of your decisions. Among the many forms of fear, two are most powerful in matters of income: the fear of poverty and the fear of criticism. The fear of poverty causes a man to cling to what he has, even when greater gain is possible. He becomes cautious. He avoids risk. He chooses security over advancement. And in doing so, he limits himself to what is already familiar. The fear of criticism works differently, yet produces the same result. A man hesitates to ask for more because he fears rejection. He avoids bold action because he fears the opinion of others. He lowers his ambition to remain acceptable. And in this effort to avoid judgment, he prevents his own expansion. You must recognize that both fears serve the same purpose. They keep you where you are. Consider the man who rises quickly in income. At first, he feels excitement. He believes he has broken free. Yet soon, a new condition appears. He begins to worry. He wonders whether he can maintain this level. He questions whether he deserves it. And in this questioning, fear enters. What follows is predictable. He begins to act differently. He becomes cautious where he was once bold. He avoids opportunities that seem uncertain. He delays decisions that require confidence. And gradually, without realizing it, he returns to his former level. He explains this by circumstance, but the cause was fear. Others observe this pattern, though they may not understand it. They see that the man could not sustain his advancement, that he rose, but then fell back. And in this observation, they conclude that he is not prepared for greater responsibility. This conclusion limits him further, for opportunity is given not only to those who can rise, but to those who can remain at the higher level. And stability requires courage, courage to continue, to act, to hold one's position despite uncertainty. The drifting man lacks this courage. He seeks comfort. He seeks safety. And in seeking these, he sacrifices growth. He chooses what feels secure rather than what leads forward. And in doing so, he obeys fear without recognizing it. You must not do this. You must bring fear into the open. Examine your decisions. Ask yourself not only what you are doing, but why you are doing it. When you hesitate, ask what is causing the hesitation. When you withdraw, ask what you are avoiding. You will often find fear at the root. Do not attempt to eliminate it entirely. That is not necessary. Even the most successful men feel fear. The difference is that they do not obey it. They act in spite of it. This is the discipline you must develop. When opportunity appears, do not ask whether it is safe. Ask whether it aligns with your aim. When the moment requires boldness, do not retreat into caution. Step forward even if uncertainty remains. Each time you act in this manner, you weaken fear. Each time you refuse to obey it, you reduce its power. And over time, a new habit is formed, the habit of courage. This habit replaces the pattern of retreat. It allows you to maintain your position even as you rise. It gives you the strength to remain at a higher level rather than returning to what is familiar. And in doing so, it breaks the cycle that has held your income in place. Others will see this change in you. They will notice that you no longer shrink when challenged, that you do not lower your standard when questioned, that you hold your ground, not with force, but with certainty. And this certainty commands respect. Respect attracts opportunity. For those who offer greater responsibility, look for those who can carry it without retreat. They observe who acts despite uncertainty, who remains steady under pressure, who does not allow fear to dictate action. When they see this in you, they respond accordingly. You are given more, not by chance, but by recognition. You must also understand that fear thrives on repetition, just as belief does. If you repeat fearful thoughts, you strengthen them. If you dwell upon what may go wrong, you prepare yourself for retreat. But if you replace those thoughts, if you focus upon your aim, your value, your purpose, you weaken fear's influence. This requires practice. Each day, you must direct your thinking. You must refuse to entertain thoughts that limit you. You must reinforce those that strengthen you. And through this repetition, you build a mind that supports your advancement. This is how alignment is achieved. Not by removing all obstacles, but by strengthening the inner condition that meets them. For your income will not rise beyond the level at which you feel secure, and if fear defines that level, you will remain confined. But when courage replaces fear, when you act with purpose, despite uncertainty, the boundary shifts. You begin to hold higher ground, and once you hold it consistently, without retreat, it becomes your new level. This is the turning point, not when opportunity appears, but when fear loses its command. For the moment you cease to obey fear, your results begin to change, not gradually, but decisively. And the number that once held you begins to release its hold because the force that kept you there has been overcome. You must now turn your attention to a cause so simple that most men overlook it entirely, and yet it governs their income with exactness. It is the absence of a definite financial aim, the failure to fix in the mind a clear, precise figure toward which all effort is directed. A man may desire more money, he may speak of earning more, he may even work harder than before. But if he has not decided how much, his efforts remain without target. And effort without a target cannot concentrate. It scatters. It moves in many directions, yet arrives nowhere in particular. This is why so many remain at the same level. They have never instructed their minds to move beyond it. The drifting man thinks in general terms. He says, I want to earn more. I want to improve my condition. These statements contain no command. They carry no measure. They do not direct the mind toward a specific result. And because they lack precision, they produce no definite action. The man who advances does something entirely different. He names his aim, not as a wish, but as a decision. He determines the exact level he intends to reach. He fixes it in his mind. He returns to it daily. And through repetition, he impresses it upon his thinking until it becomes accepted. This acceptance is what directs action. Consider the man who has no fixed aim. When opportunity appears, he cannot measure it. He does not know whether it serves him because he has not defined where he is going. And in this uncertainty, he hesitates, he delays, he passes. The man with a definite aim does not hesitate in the same way. He examines each opportunity against his purpose. If it leads toward his aim, he acts. If it does not, he rejects it. His decisions are simplified because they are guided. This guidance is essential, for without it, a man is influenced by every passing condition. He accepts what comes. He adjusts his direction repeatedly, and in doing so, he loses momentum. This is why his income remains unchanged. His effort lacks continuity. It is not enough to work. One must work towards something definite. I have observed men who labored faithfully for years, yet remained at the same level. When questioned, they could not state what they intended to earn. They had never fixed the figure. They had never made it a part of their thinking. And because of this, their actions lacked direction. Contrast this with Edwin C. Barnes. Before he ever reached Thomas Edison, he had already decided what he would become. He did not say, I will try. He did not leave his future undefined. He fixed it. And that fixed aim guided every action that followed. The same law applies to income. You must decide what level you will accept, not vaguely, but precisely. For the mind works best when given a clear instruction. It moves toward what is defined. It organizes effort around what is measured, and it rejects what does not align. This is why repetition is required. A single decision is not enough. The aim must be restated. It must be held before the mind until it becomes familiar, until it no longer feels distant, until it becomes natural to think at that level. Once this occurs, something changes. The man begins to act in accordance with his aim. He no longer accepts opportunities that fall below it. He no longer prices his service beneath it. He no longer speaks as one confined by his former condition. His conduct rises to match his thinking. Others see this immediately. They notice that he operates differently, that he carries a sense of direction, that his actions are not random but purposeful. And in this observation they respond. They offer him opportunities that align with his aim, not by chance, but by recognition. For people are drawn to those who know where they are going. They trust those who act with clarity, and they invest in those whose direction is fixed. The drifting man does not inspire this response. He appears uncertain. His actions vary. His efforts do not suggest a clear destination, and because of this, others cannot rely upon him to produce definite results. This limits his income, not because opportunity is absent, but because direction is. You must therefore correct this condition at once. Do not leave your financial future undefined. Do not allow it to be shaped by circumstance. Decide with firmness what you intend to earn. Fix the figure, accept it as your aim, then repeat it. Each day, bring it before your mind. Consider it. Imagine yourself receiving it. Align your thinking with it, and as your thinking changes, your actions will follow. This is the process by which income is increased, not by chance, not by effort alone, but by definite purpose, reinforced through repetition. You must also understand that this aim must be supported by action. It is not enough to declare a figure and wait. You must render service equal to that figure. You must improve your ability. You must increase your value. And you must act in ways that bring you closer to your aim. The aim directs, action fulfills. Together, they produce result. The drifting man separates these. He may act without aim, or aim without action. And in both cases, he remains where he is. The directed man unites them. He knows what he seeks. He acts accordingly. And through this unity, his income rises. Others will begin to see you differently when you adopt this principle. They will notice that you no longer speak in uncertain terms, that you do not accept what is given without question, that you carry a clear expectation of what you intend to receive. This expectation influences how they treat you. They begin to align their offers with your standard. They recognize that you are not operating at a lower level. And in this recognition, they adjust. This is how income moves, not by demand alone, but by alignment between thought, action, and expectation. And once this alignment is achieved, the number that once held you begins to lose its hold, for you have replaced uncertainty with purpose, and purpose, once fixed and repeated, directs all that follows. This is the principle. Without a definite aim, income remains unchanged. With it, properly applied, it cannot remain the same. You must now consider a principle that many men resist, for it appears at first to contradict what they believe to be fair. Yet it is one of the most exact laws governing income. A man's earnings remain fixed when his service remains equal to his compensation. They begin to expand only when his service exceeds it. This is not a matter of opinion. It is a law of cause and effect. The drifting man works according to what he is paid. He measures his effort by his wages. If he is paid for 8 hours, he gives 8 hours, no more, no less. If he is given a task, he completes only what is required. And in doing so, he believes he is acting justly. But in this balance, there is no growth. For advancement does not come to the man who maintains equality, it comes to the man who creates surplus. The man who gives more than he is paid for sets into motion a force that must in time return to him in greater measure. This principle has been misunderstood by many. They say, "Why should I give more when I am not yet receiving more?" And in this question, they reveal their limitation. For they expect reward before they create the condition that produces it. The successful man reverses this order. He gives first. He increases the quality of his service. He expands the quantity. He improves the spirit in which it is rendered. And in doing so, he distinguishes himself from those who merely fulfill their duties. Consider the case of a clerk who began in an ordinary position. He was not given special advantage. He was not promised advancement, yet he made a decision to render service beyond what was expected. He completed his tasks with care, then sought additional ways to improve the business. He studied its operations. He offered suggestions. He made himself useful beyond his assignment. At first, no additional pay was given, but something else was given attention. His superiors began to notice him. They observed that he required no urging, that he acted without being told, that he carried a sense of responsibility beyond his position. And in time, this attention turned into opportunity. He was entrusted with more. And with each increase in responsibility, his income followed. This is always the sequence. Service first, recognition second, compensation third. The drifting man attempts to reverse it. He waits for recognition before he gives more. He demands compensation before he increases service, and because he waits, he remains where he is. You must not make this error. Understand that the world responds to demonstrated value, not promised value. It rewards those who prove their worth through action, not those who speak of it without evidence. When you render more service than you are paid for, you create a difference, a surplus. This surplus cannot remain unnoticed indefinitely. It builds, it accumulates, and eventually it must find expression in the form of greater opportunity. Others begin to see this clearly. They observe that you are not limited by your assignment, that you take initiative, that you do not require constant instruction, that you improve what you touch, and in this observation they form a conclusion: you are prepared for more. This conclusion opens the way, for advancement is not given to those who wait for it. It is given to those who prepare for it in advance, and preparation is demonstrated through service. You must also understand that this principle applies not only to employment, but to all forms of income. The man who sells must give more value than he takes in payment. The man who leads must give more guidance than is expected. The man who builds must contribute more than is required. In each case, the surplus becomes the source of increase. This surplus is not always immediate in its return. At times, it may seem that your efforts are unnoticed, that you are giving more without receiving more. And it is at this point that many abandon the principle. They return to equality. They give only what is required. And in doing so, they halt their own advancement. You must persist, for the return is certain, though it may not be immediate. The law does not fail. It operates with precision, even when unseen. Each act of additional service adds to your value. Each demonstration of initiative strengthens your position. And over time, the accumulation becomes undeniable. At that point, the return must come. It may come through increased income. It may come through new opportunity. It may come through recognition that places you in a position to earn more. But it will come because the cause has been established. The drifting man never reaches this point. He stops too soon. He expects immediate reward. He measures his effort against present return. And when the two are equal, he ceases to give more. In doing so, he limits himself to what is already known. You must think differently. Do not measure your service by what you are paid today. Measure it by what you intend to receive tomorrow. Let your effort reflect your future, not your present. Give at the level